The action took place 5,000 years ago, in the era of the immortals. Two people were sitting on the ground in the lotus position, surrounded by green trees. Ming has a great talent, but a special mind, not suitable for cultivation, someone said. An elderly man with long gray hair and a long mustache sat opposite the same long-haired young man and said that he probably would not be able to move from the stage of cleansing the body to the next stage. The young guy, blonde, replied to the master that he knows patience and it doesn't matter how long it will last, a year or hundreds of years, or even if it takes forever, it doesn't matter. The old man replied to the stupid child that he was like his own son to him and he always took care of him. But one day the old man will still have to leave him. The master twirled his hand through the air and purple light seemed to pour out of his fingers and a blue crystal sparkled. He told the young man that if he could find the core of the mainland, then he would have a chance to break through. This path of cultivation facilitated their meeting. But alas, the core of the mainland is just a legend and perhaps he will never find it. 5,000 years later, in the huge mansion of the Yuan family, a young blonde man stood by the bedside of a sick old man who told the master that this disciple was no longer the same as he used to be, because his strength was fading and now he was dying. The old man can no longer serve the master. The young man replied to the old man, saying, Yuan Ju, you have already lived for more than 100 years. There is no need to regret anything. He doesn't blame the old man for anything and he can go with peace. It's not so bad that he will die of old age. The young man thought to himself that he had already reached the 99,942nd layer of the body purification stage, and although he was not aging, he could not break through further. He had already lived for 5,000 years, but he could not break through further. Over the years, he has seen a lot of different people who have stayed behind him or met their demise. But in the end, there was only one left, who continues to observe changes in the world. Probably all he can do now is to find the core of the mainland that the master spoke about, but he only managed to find the key. Meanwhile, outside the Yuan family's house, Yuan Zhengtian, an elderly man with glasses, a shirt with a knitted vest and a cane on which he leaned, and Yuan Chuda, a young girl with long purple hair and a purple outfit, were standing in the courtyard. She asked her father why Grandpa wanted to talk to that strange guy right before he died. As far as she knows, that guy is an intern teacher at Shengcheng University. Zheng Tian replied to his daughter that her grandfather was an entrepreneur, and it was only thanks to him that their family reached its current position. He must have his reasons for doing so, and they can only wait in peace. The door to the house opened and that blonde young man came out. He passed by the girl, and she asked him how her grandfather was feeling. He answered her without even turning around, her grandfather is dead. The girl put her hands to her mouth. She thought about how she knew this day would come, but she shouted to the blonde man to wait. In a rather rude way, the guy asked what she needed and turned around. Chuda said, when Grandpa was alive, he wanted her to treat the guy like a grandfather, follow him and obey him in everything. She wants to know why. The young man replied that she should not take these words seriously, because for him they are all just passers-by. Chuda shouted after him, can he just take off and leave? He must be stopped immediately. The last order was intended for the guards that surrounded the guy in a short time. The girl said that their family is one of the big families in Jingzhou, and he is the last person her grandfather spoke to before his death, so he will have to tell everything they talked about first. The guy laughed and said that if her grandfather had heard these words, he would not have liked it very much. Someone shouted that a guest had come. A man appeared with a cigarette in his hand and in a business suit and a jacket draped over his shoulders. 4 bodyguards walked behind him. He turned to the girl, calling her his dear, and asked if it was true that the old man had died and why she still hadn't told this news to her uncle. He lowered his round glasses to the bridge of his nose, looking straight at Chuda. The girl replied that he did nothing but interfere with their family and created nothing but problems, for which Grandpa kicked him out. How dare he come back here again? The man with a feigned annoying tone said, they say, the young, and they are already contradicting the elders. Looks like the Yuan family didn't have any manners anymore. He just wants to know if the old man is really dead or not. If so, then from now on he will be the head of the Yuan family. Chuda replied that only in his dreams. The girl's father told his brother, Yuan Bio, that since they were still fighting, he advised him to leave this house immediately, and not make a mistake. Bio laughed and asked Obret if he was crazy if he thought he could resist him. The man raised one hand up and a bright green ball lit up in his palm. Bio frowned and shouted that today he would show his brother what real strength means. He jumped high and faced his brother in a duel, where there was a green-orange light around them. Zheng Tian coughed and flew away from his brother's blow. The girl shouted with tears in her eyes, this is this picture. She rushed to her father to ask if he was okay. He only said, a martial arts master of the 3rd rank. Bio asked if they were interested in finding out where and when he got the 3rd rank. The fact is that he became a disciple of the King Lan Shan clan master, Liu King Land. After the old man's death, no one in the Yuan family is his opponent anymore. They just need to surrender and give up control of the Yuan family, and then he will leave them alone if they break their legs. The brother replied to Bio so that he would not be so self-confident. This is the main place of the family's business and he will not give it to Bio, even if he has to give his life for it. Bio turned to Chuda, saying that her father was so useless that he would not be able to protect her and her family. Zheng Tian asked his daughter for forgiveness, to which she said not to say anything more, because she would always remain on his side and the side of their family. Bio said that since they both wish for death, then so be it. Suddenly someone said he could fight anyone, but first he had to let go. The whole Yuan family turned back and saw the blonde man standing in the same place, still surrounded by guards, and asked to let him pass. The guard barked at the young man, because no one allowed him to speak. The master swung at this remark and hit the guard, saying that he had nothing to do with it, and therefore how dare he insult. Bio asked what kind of nonsense, because a Mao is a man under 100 kilograms and he can't fly away from just one slap in the face. The young man cleared his throat and straightened his tie while the man asked him if he thought which way he was going now, and how dare he interfere in his affairs. The guy replied that he was following the path of happiness, which everyone else stared at in amazement. The young man was finally tired of being in this place, so he said that if nothing was needed from him, then he would go home from here. Bio asked how strong he was and was told, a professional technical university on Happiness Avenue, and he is a teacher there. The man laughed at this and said that since he was just some kind of pathetic teacher, then why was he wasting their time? He ordered his guards to attack him. Zheng Tian ordered a halt immediately. He said, Yuan Bio Jr. Xuan Yuan is just a kid that his father wanted to meet before his death. He has nothing to do with their affairs. He should be allowed to leave. Bio replied to his brother that he was to blame for contacting him. If he doesn't teach the boy a lesson, then they will laugh at him. Bio snapped his fingers and the guards rushed at the blonde-haired man, because how dare he contact them? Let him go to hell. The blonde's eyes flashed yellow, and with one kick he knocked down all the guards that they flew away. The man stood in disbelief, sweat dripped down his face, and he did not understand how this was possible and asked the guy who he was. What kind of strength and rank does he have? Maybe the 5th rank, or maybe he is one step away from the master. The blonde man asked the man why he was attacking him if they didn't have any problems in common. To which he replied, what is he going to do? Because he is a martial artist of the 3rd rank and the guy will not be able to defeat him. The young man was surprised that the man was so strong. He took a stand and knocked Bio out with one blow of his fist, which already broke his face. He replied that he was a cultivator of the 99,942nd layer. Junior Xuan Yuan was already walking out of the gate when Zheng Tian called him and asked if they could talk, to which he apologized and said that they could not, because now he had important things to do and they would never meet again. Chuda asked her father why did Grandpa want to meet him. After all, he just took off and left. Her father replied that her grandfather always told them to treat him well, and he must have had his reasons for that. Their family is in a serious condition right now, so they will need a strong martial artist. So, they will need to lure him to the side of the family. The girl was surprised that the family was in a serious condition. Is it really that bad? Although their family is one of the biggest families in Jingzhou, but in comparison with the King Lan Shan clan, they are like rats. Now that Yuan Bio has become a disciple of this clan, none of their family is no longer able to resist him, much less his clan, and they can only ask for help from Xuan Yuan. The man was already returning to the house when his daughter stopped him and said that since their family was in such a serious condition, that she would go and talk to him. She will ask you to help them overcome these difficulties. The father agreed and said that he had heard something about this university where the young man works, and would ask his friends to invest it. And then Chuda can also become a teacher there. Meanwhile, at the Vocational Technical University, in the teacher's dormitory, there was a girl with black hair gathered in a high ponytail. Teacher He King Mei talked to her father on the phone and said that she wanted to live in peace for at least a little and therefore asked him to stop calling her. The father on the phone replied that he understood that she was running away from marriage and he would give her time to think. He has already sent someone to fix the situation at this terrible university a little. And he also hired a strong martial artist to look after her and be able to protect her at any time. The girl stood all red from her overflowing anger from her father's lectures. She said that if that's all, then she hangs up. Suddenly, it was heard from behind that someone told the boss that she had finally been found. The girl turned around and saw the guys. One of them, with his head in pigtails, told the girl that he had to work hard to find her. She ignored all his invitations and forced him to come in person. Kingmei replied that she was not interested in the guy, so she asked him to leave her alone. The guys from the gang of the one with pigtails surrounded the girl from all sides. It doesn't matter at all whether she is interested or not. He shouted to his brothers that they could finally do it. The girl asked with fear what they were going to do and reminded them that they were not actually on the university grounds. They are now standing near the hostel where people often pass. The girl screamed that these guys didn't touch her. Yuan was walking with a jacket on his shoulder when he saw this performance and turned around, referring to more important things, while those guys asked the girl what if they were near the hostel. The guy with pigtails leaned closer to the girl to intimidate her even more and said that all the teachers here are scum who would never dare to get into his affairs. She doesn't think that any group of teachers will appear now to save her, does she? How naive this beautiful lady is. Yuan stopped and twirled either a key or a folding knife in his fingers. He wondered why he was being insulted again. The guy, seeing that the girl was looking behind him, asked what she was doing. Kingmei raised her hand up, thinking that it must be her new bodyguard that her father had told her about on the phone. He definitely has to deal with these bandits. The girl called the blonde to come to her in quickly, and to get rid of these guys. Yuan was surprised that they turned to him and looked at the brunette with pigtails, who shouted to him that if he came up, then he was a corpse. And he also called me a weakling. The brunette asked the girl why she thought that this weakling would be able to save her, because he is not even able to protect himself. He said, "Stop dreaming, young lady. It is unlikely that this loser will even dare to approach us. Just stop resisting and let's go." The guy grabbed her with one hand and held her chin with the other. He heard a question from the blonde man, whether he was going to kill him. Does he really want to die? Friends of the brunette rushed at Yuan shouting that this guy imagined that he was a hero. Now they will show him his place. How dare he interfere in Brother Zhao's affairs? He must die. The blonde waved his jacket and all the guys instantly scattered in different directions. The brunette called the blonde a bastard. They say, he learned a couple of tricks and already dares to interfere in his affairs. If they start a battle, the outcome will be the death of the blonde. Yuan took Zhao's finger in his hand, which he kept poking right in his face, and cleared his throat, saying that he had never worried about his affairs, but this was the second person who started insulting him for no reason. It really got to him. The guy with pigtails was sitting on his knees covered in sweat, with a menacing face, and replied that he would give him the death that the blonde so craves. And it's not that he wasn't warned. Yuan slapped Zhao, to which he asked how he dared to hit him. At this time, the blonde was hitting him on the cheeks back and forth. Unable to withstand such an onslaught, Zhao said that he was giving up, just so that he would not be beaten anymore. He's already sitting there covered in bruises and abrasions. The brunette came up from behind, and folding one fist into the other, preparing for a fight, said that now it was her turn. She started beating the offender while the blonde just looked at it on the sidelines. Zhao was lying at the feet of the girl and begged the young miss to stop beating him because he would no longer molest her. Suddenly, the girl's heel broke, and she was about to fall back when Yuan caught her. She did not expect this in any way, and only looked at the blonde man who held her behind his back as in the most romantic stories. Kingmei shook her finger at the fleeing guys and shouted not to see them again, otherwise they wouldn't get off so easily next time. At this time, Yuan was still hugging the girl around the waist. The gang ran away flashing their heels, and the girl seemed to the blonde that he showed himself well today. Finally, my father sent a smart bodyguard, and winked. The girl sprained her ankle and asked the guy to take her to the room and then he would get a bonus. The blonde let go of the girl, as if he waved her off, and she almost fell back, not expecting that he would let her go. As a result, she still fell, and the young man shouted to her, leaving, saying that he was not interested in this offer. Kingmei shouted for him to come back immediately. What an arrogant bodyguard he was, and let him not blame her when he told his father everything. The young man was sitting on the floor in his room in the lotus position and was saying something about the last spiritual herb. It's already quite difficult to find one, especially a village. His cultivation is severely restricted without these spiritual herbs. Apparently, later he will have to visit famous families and bargain with them. The guy is sure that they still have spiritual herbs. The blonde man put his hands forward and a bright blue light with a ball burst out of a small vessel. He took this ball in his hand, looked at it and began to reason that being on the 99,942nd layer, he needed another 58 layers to reach the round figure. The path to the core of the mainland is too unpredictable and dangerous, so first he needs to prepare properly. The guy swallowed the ball and was able to reach 99,943rd layer. At a professional technical university, a young man walked with a book in his hands and reflected that several thousand years were left behind, and he continues to cultivate on this planet while not getting old. And to avoid unnecessary problems, he has to change his identity every 20 years. He began to remember the past, where he acted from the shadows to influence the wars that arose in different eras. And now, his identity is a teacher. It is quite a non-stressful and easy job, where it is fashionable to relax and cultivate calmly. Suddenly, expensive black cars drove up, apparently worth at least 10 million yuan each. People wondered who had come in such luxury. One guy replied that he didn't know, but he had heard that the Yuan family's princess, Yuan Chuda, was coming to their university. Others thought it was a joke. Why would such a princess transfer to their university? Enough silly jokes. But the guy said he wasn't joking, and pointed to a girl with purple hair who got out of the car. Maybe she just wanted a normal life. Xuan was looking at the girl from afar, and she noticed him because he really is here. Suddenly someone shouted, "Make way. Don't stand in the way." It was a blonde guy with his gang of boys, and he turned to the girl, saying that he would never have thought that she would transfer to their university. The girl folded her arms and asked Qin Zhao that he was also at this university. He is the second son of the Qin family, and although their family is not comparable to the Yuan family, they are an influential figure. And yet this second son has a rather mediocre personality, and Chuda would never have thought that we would meet him here. The blonde greyhound Qin Zhao turned to the girl and said that he was surprised that she had come here. He invited her on a tour of the university, and in his mind was that he really did not expect that Chuda would be transferred here. Lao also pursued her, but she always ignored him. Now that there is another chance, it should not be missed. The long-haired girl turned away from the guy and said that she didn't need an excursion because she had to go to class, and in general, she had other things to do. She approached Xuan Yuan and pretended to be surprised at their meeting, calling it a coincidence. They met again and the girl offered dinner after class. The blonde man said that he knew what she had come for, and since they were not familiar, asked him not to bother him anymore. And he left. He thought to himself that even though this girl is a descendant of the late Yuan, there are tens of thousands of other descendants that he knows. If he took care of all the descendants of his acquaintances, then he wouldn't have time for anything else. The girl got angry and thought about how he dared to refuse her, and even publicly. The guy from the gang turned to his friends and ordered them to find out what kind of guy he was now. They are to steal the girls he liked, King Zhao. He must be tired of life. A bell rang from their speakers, and the blonde man was sitting with his legs thrown on the desk when his friend came up to him and said that he found out that this guy's name was Yuan Xuanming, and he was a trainee teacher who arrived at the university not so long ago. Quite by chance, he was assigned to their class to teach two subjects, physical education and history. The blonde man clenched his fists, angry at this information. Just some pathetic teacher dares to steal his girlfriend. It's like I've lost my fear. Chuda entered the classroom, and the blonde man stared at her. At this time, the girl decided to attend his lectures, since Xuan ignores her. He will see what he will do now. The girl turned around when King called her, and since they were in the same class, why shouldn't she sit next to him? The girl rejected the offer, saying that she would sit in another place, and turned away. The blonde laughed and said as she wished. Chuda must have something to do with this Xuan Yuanming, but it doesn't matter anymore. He will make sure to embarrass him in front of Chuda. He shouted to his friend to go and at first just warn this Xuan Yuanming. The guy with the ponytail said he understood everything. He went to the blackboard and wrote something on it with chalk, giggling at the same time. The masterpiece is ready. He dusted his hands off the chalk and walked away from the blackboard, on which something was written in large letters. Some kind of insults. When the guy with the ponytail was returning to his place after the prank, Chuda thought that he wanted to create trouble for the blonde and she should intervene. But she would like to see his real strength, even though her father asked her to help him. However, Xuan Yuanmin is so young, how can he handle such ruthless ones? People like the Green Mountain Wolf, if he can't, then she shouldn't waste time on him, and it's better to find other reliable practitioners. And as far as she knows, King Zhao's older brother, King Zhao, is a practitioner who is well even in the cities on the southern islands. One day, he single-handedly defeated 3 practitioners who had almost reached the level of a master, and then he broke their cultivation, arms and legs, and was extremely cruel. If Xuan Yuanmin didn't dare provoke even King Zhao, then his brother has nothing to talk about. And it is even less likely that he will be able to help them take revenge on Bio given the Mountain Wolf clan behind him. So it will be of little use to their family. A little later, a blonde man entered the office, and the gang immediately drew attention to him with anticipation about the show that was beginning. The blonde turned to the students and asked who had written on the blackboard. The guy with the ponytail replied, saying, "Who knows, someone must dislike him." The leader of this gang turned to the teacher and said that he was starting to worry about him, that one day he might just be beaten up. And everyone laughed at the brilliant joke. The master took a brush for the board and said that no matter who wrote it, he did not want this to happen again. The main bully shouted to the teacher that the loser once asked 2 pathetic questions and began to erase everything from the blackboard himself. He said that from now on he didn't want to call him Teacher Xuan Yuan. Now he would be a rag teacher. And again laughter for the whole audience. Yeah, what a shame. And a great name. The blonde silently continued to erase from the board, not succumbing to provocations. The girl who was watching what was happening thought that anyone in the teacher's place would have fallen into a rage after such bullying. But Xuan Yuan Min remains indifferent. Standing near the already clean blackboard, Xuan turned to the desks and shouted for everyone to shut up, and since they were his students, he would forgive them for the first time and close his eyes to everything. But this is only the last time, and now they will move on to the lesson. He told all the students to open their textbooks and start listening. The battle between the rulers of Xuan Huan and Kaiyu. Shuda continued to sit in her place in the first fifth and pondered in her head that the teacher reluctantly had to close her eyes, and it seems her father overestimated him. He must be afraid of him, his older brother, which is why he does not dare to contradict him. Otherwise, it is impossible to explain why he tolerates such insults in his address. The bully asked if it was exactly the first time he appeared in their class like some kind of king. But in fact it turned out that he was just a rag teacher and a loser. Unable to tolerate such provocations any longer, the blonde threw his rag for the board with all his strength directly to the gang, and it got into the blonde man's mouth, plugging him. Everyone rushed to him to see what he was doing with this rag in his mouth. He just grunted at that. The girl was trying to figure out what it was with Xuan Yuan Ming. Could he have done it? It can't be, otherwise he wouldn't have tolerated him from the very beginning. And besides, she was sitting opposite him and didn't see him do anything. The bully was sitting with a rag in his mouth and was still choking. His comrades stared and asked what he was doing when he tried to speak. The guys began to call for help, because their brother King is suffocating from an unfortunate rag in his mouth. The guys decided to help brother King with his trouble and tried to pull out the rag altogether. But no one could do it and they just shouted at the guy to spit it out. That didn't work either. And they started yelling even harder and thinking about another way. Kim Zio is going to suffocate now. The master came up to them and told everyone to calmly move away. He will be able to pull out the stuck rag. With one stroke, he managed to do what others failed to do. The blonde man flew away as if from a blow and sprawled on the floor like a star when friends ran up to him and asked if he was okay. The blonde just watched it all with an impenetrable expression on his face. Meanwhile, in the school dormitory, the brunette was asking someone again. She stared at the strange man and couldn't believe if he was really the bodyguard her father had sent. Penhai, a man with a bald head and a gray mustache, put his hands together and said that it was. Before coming here, Patriarchy explained to him that if she walked alone, she might be attacked. But the man assured Miss He not to worry because he was here and nothing would harm her. The girl put her hand to her face and accepted what she had. She sat down on the bed and began to wonder if her father had seriously done this to her. She was looking out the window but suddenly saw the guy who saved her from the bandits. Then he turned to the old man and asked that since he was her bodyguard, then who was the person outside the window? He replied that he did not know, but he was calm and prudent. He must be practicing martial arts. The girl stood up and crossed her arms over her chest. That day, the blonde pretended to be her bodyguard and threw that woman to the ground, and this is unforgivable. The old man said that since he had offended the young lady, he would teach him a lesson for the sake of the young miss, and turned around to leave. He shouted to the man to stop and he asked what she wanted. The girl asked him to just teach that guy a lesson and not overdo it, because he still saved her. And here's another thing. Let the old man let him know that she should not be treated so lightly. The man turned to the young lady and told her not to worry, because he would complete this task as soon as possible. And he left. Xuan was walking down the street past the dorm and yawning when a man approached him and introduced himself to Pen James. He said he was Miss King May's bodyguard and a level 3 martial artist. The old man thinks that the guy has been practicing kung fu for several years and should know the strength of a 3rd level master. The blonde man just ignored the old man and walked past him. The bodyguard turned around and shouted after the departing blonde guy how brazenly he left him, because an old man was talking to him. Let him apologize to Miss He right now, otherwise the man will have to teach him manners and respect. Xuan Yuan stopped and, turning only his head to the old man, told the man enough is enough. The man shouted, "Kid, does this bastard really want to die?" and rushed at the guy. Miss He was watching all this nearby, saw Peng Hai start attacking the blonde and said what a good performance. Xu and Yuan Min knocked the old man out with his foot and the bodyguard flew away, staring at the head. The girl did not expect this at all when the man fell right at her feet, with a broken face. The blonde man thought to himself that it looks like he already needs to change his place of work and residence. He's met too much trouble on his head lately. He Mei stood with her hands on her hips and looked at this scoundrel. She turned to the man who was lying on his elbows on the ground and asked him how he was going to protect her without defeating such a young guy. How can she relax? The man replied to the young lady that he was careless and did not prepare for his attack. This boy has no skills, although he has a good cultivation base. However, if he fights him face to face, then the guy will not win. The girl was not happy with what was happening and saying that she had suffered all this, sent the man far away. She turned around and walked away herself. At that time, students were sitting in the school classroom, and the victim was blonde with a plaster on his cheek. He distorted the teacher's name, calling him the bastard Xuanyangming, and how dare he treat him like that. A friend with a ponytail asked Qin Zhao if he still wanted to take revenge on this bastard. If he hadn't pulled that sponge out of his mouth, the guy would have been dead by now. But he immediately fell silent when a friend shouted at him to shut up, because he wants to kill him himself and let everyone remember that he will make the teacher pay for everything. It is inconceivable to the mind how he could swallow that sponge for the board. This Ming must have done something. Not only that, he also hit him in front of the public. Unacceptable. The blonde man was furious. Xu and Yuan Min was walking down the school corridor, still holding his yellow book under his arm. It feels like he's not parting with her at all. He stopped when Chuda called him. It seems she has something to tell him. The blonde man replied that he didn't care at all. The girl asked why he ignored Qin Zhao's provocations. Is he really afraid of that? The blonde replied that he didn't care about the guy she was talking about. He has absolutely no time to waste on unnecessary people, including her. The master turned around and walked down the corridor and the girl frowned behind him and clenched her hands into fists. She shouted after him to admit already that he was afraid of Qin Zhao. That's why he didn't do anything to Qin Zhao. The guy asked if she was really so worried about him. Did she think that such an insult would be enough to anger him? The girl looked at him and thought to herself that her father had probably made a mistake this time and they didn't need a man like Su and Yuan Ming filled with fear. They need someone who can beat the frontal in this city. The blonde man entered the classroom and stopped, asking, "They say, is it really again?" He stopped near a small pulpit that was lying on the floor and chalk was scattered around. In a calm tone, he asked whose handiwork it was. The victim turned to the teacher and said that he dropped the table by accident, and the inscriptions on the blackboard. These must be the very inscriptions that he forgot to erase yesterday. And everyone laughed. Let the teacher not forget to wipe the board this time. Suddenly tomorrow there will be even more inscriptions. The blonde exhaled heavily and asked if they hadn't learned anything yesterday. The blonde man yelled, how dare this guy teach him. The teacher was leaning on the edge of his desk when he was told that he had better take care of himself, because with such a level of training, he would not be able to resist the blonde. How dare he approach him and fight? The blonde looked at the finger poking him right in the face and said that he would give the guy a chance to go gray. It is necessary to put the table in place and erase the inscriptions from the board. The bully asked what this teacher was telling him. Did he really want him, Qin Zhao, to fix all this? And he laughed hard at the whole audience. This teacher looks good but does not shine with intelligence. Since he wrote those words, he will erase them. The blonde slapped the disobedient man hard in the face on them, and he flew away with a broken nose. The guy got up from the floor, holding his broken nose, and called the teacher a disgusting bastard. Friends started asking if he was okay. The blonde ordered to immediately erase everything from the board. The guy replied that he was going to be erased. He stepped over the desk and rushed at the teacher and they met with fists. Qin ordered to let go of his hand, otherwise he would cut Egon into small pieces. However, in response, he received another ode to a slap in the face, to the redness of the cheek. Then I also got a kick from the leg. The guy with the ponytail asked the teacher what he was doing, because Qin Zhao has an older brother, Qin Zhao, and if he contacts him, he will be in big trouble. And I got the same slap in the face from the blonde who replied that he did not want to lose what he had just said again. They should immediately put the table back in place and erase all inscriptions from the board. The red-headed one with the ponytail said that they would erase everything now, and began to urge his obnoxious friend. The girl with purple hair couldn't believe that the blonde had done it. He beat up Qin Zhao's group and couldn't stand the insults like he did yesterday. Did he do it after what she told him? When the guy passed by her, she called him. She frowned when he didn't stop and shouted that she would apologize for the provocation about beating up Qin Zhao. She shouldn't have said those words to annoy him, and he should find a place to hide for a while. Because elder brother Qin Zhao is not one of those who can be defeated so easily, and it will be very bad if he suddenly comes for the blonde. The guy stopped and turned to the girl and said that when Sangji was young, he was a very sensible and intelligent child. And why are his descendants so stupid? He turned around and walked away from the girl, who remained in place. This made her very angry, and Chuda shouted that he himself was stupid. She thought to herself, this guy is so rude since he called the descendants of her family stupid. He even called her grandfather a sensible child, as if he was watching him grow up. What nonsense. She has to talk to her father first. The girl was walking down the corridor and talking to her father. Xu and Bingming had just beaten up Qin Zhao, and his older brother wouldn't let the blonde just run away. What should they do next? On the other end of the line, the man replied that Xu and Yuanming was her grandfather's dream. Even if she said that his strength could not be compared to the cruel man of the Green Wolf, ruler of the mountain, they will not escape from this disaster of the Yuan family, and therefore must protect the guy at all costs. Now her father will send her Mr. Feng. And he hung up. He called Feng Lao and asked him what he thought about Qin Zhao. A man with thick stubble appeared in front of the boss and said that Qin Zhao is a famous rising star of Nandao City. He can fight him face to face. The man replied that he needed him to secretly protect the young man under the name Suanu and Ming, and he has to make sure that Qin Zhao doesn't touch him. Feng Lao replied to the man that then he would insult Qin Zhao if he defended this guy. The man ignored this statement and told Feng to go and do as he says. He will find some